our next presenter, Claudia Pineda Tibbs, who is joining us from Monterey Bay Aquarium. And let me tell you a little about Claudia. She serves as Monterey Bay Aquarium's sustainability project manager, working on energy conservation and waste reduction issues, in addition to conservation outreach relating to the aquarium's conservation goals. And those goals are 3 goals. They're good ones: improving the sustainability of global fisheries and aquaculture, combating climate change and its impact on ocean health, and then specifically reducing the sources of ocean plastic pollution. And Claudia centers her conservation outreach work on the intersection of environmentalism and culture in order to integrate her lived experience as a first-generation Salvadoran-American into environmental issues impacting the marginalized communities and communities of color. And so she's acting for the ocean, involved in seafood, plastic, and climate, and the ocean, of course, should be for everyone. Hello, Claudia.
Hi everyone. I am so happy to be here. Thanks for that introduction, Dennis. And I've taken over the screen with my slides, so I believe you can see those well. And I wanted to just introduce myself again. My name is Claudia Pineda Tibbs. I'm the sustainability manager at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I work in the Conservation and Science Division, and my pronouns are actually they, them. So you can refer to me as they, them, or just Claudia. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And so you all know there's no way I can compete with the aquarium with Monterey Bay. So you're just going to see a lot of really pretty pictures, and I'm going to give you information. So you won't see any text on these slides. And I think that's okay, because the Monterey Bay Aquarium's Conservation and Science team works to achieve the aquarium's conservation priorities and mobilize our audiences to take action for the ocean. And as Dennis mentioned, our main conservation priorities are to improve the sustainability of global fisheries and aquaculture, advance policy for ocean conservation, generate scientific information to guide conservation decisions, and model best practices for environmental sustainability. And speaking of global fisheries and aquaculture, unsustainable seafood production is a major threat to ocean health. In response, the Monterey Bay Aquarium has developed the most trusted, rigorous standard for fishing and aquaculture practices worldwide. Initially, we designed our Seafood Watch program to drive demand in North America with assessments that underpin sustainable seafood efforts around the globe. And we've rated more than 85% of seafood in the US market, so that businesses have the information they need to source responsibly and to identify which fisheries and aquaculture operations meet or need improvement, and continue to develop information on the sustainability performance of global fisheries and aquaculture, which includes environmental sustainability, social sustainability, as well as governance. And throughout our seafood recommendations, expertise, and collaboration, we drive sustainable seafood demand and positive change at all levels of the supply chain. That includes the seafood industry, governments, other non-governmental organizations. We use our scientific assessments to inform improvements to fishery and aquaculture operations and management systems. We also partner with major seafood buyers whose purchasing power incentivizes improvements in seafood production, and focus on companies that act meaningfully within the supply chain, particularly in Southeast Asia. These partnerships include leading contract food service companies, influential retailers, large restaurant chains, pet food suppliers, and the hospitality sector. Our efforts across Seafood Watch, as well as our ocean policy teams and programs, are meant to engage governments, businesses, and other stakeholders to improve practices and enhance comprehensive approaches for sustainable development. Additionally, using our trusted voice to inspire government action is one of our most important strategies at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. The Ocean Conservation Policy Team works with policymakers, scientists, and stakeholders to develop and advance science-based policies to improve ocean health from the local all the way to the global level. We bring scientific information and public support to promote government action on ocean protection, pollution reduction, in particular plastic pollution reduction, climate change, and sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, as I mentioned just a slide ago. We also cultivate ocean leaders in Sacramento, Washington, D.C., and our key seafood producing nations around the world. We pursue government action to defend the ocean from threats like offshore oil development and deep sea mining. And we promote the protection of valuable ocean ecosystems like the creation of California's first of its kind network of marine protected areas. We promote action to combat the causes of climate change and build ocean resiliency in the face of climate impacts. Today, we're working with partners to inspire action by the Biden administration and Congress, including exploring ocean-based renewable energy and protecting blue carbon habitats. These are habitats that sequester carbon more successfully or more efficiently than other ecosystems. We're also bringing science-based information to similar ocean-based climate actions in California. And we aim to increase connections between ocean conservation and social justice policy advocacy communities, knowing that this means working to include more diverse voices in ocean conservation action and supporting policies to improve social and environmental justice so that this can truly be an equitable effort that benefits all. Our conservation research programs work to understand California ocean ecosystems and their wildlife. We're studying we're examining the intersection of climate change with issues of global equity. By contributing this research to global assessments, we aim to inform global decision makers and inspire urgent, equitable climate action. Probably your most favorite photo because it's otters, but we focus on recovering the threatened southern sea otter population and demonstrating how otters support coastal health. As founders of the first ever sea otter surrogacy program, our teams rescue and care for stranded pups and injured otters, build the wild population with surrogate raised juveniles, and work with partners to conduct studies and annual population surveys. Our long-term goal is to reintroduce sea otters beyond their population core in Monterey Bay. And our bluefin tuna conservation efforts in the Western Pacific include work to improve management through international policy engagement, years of tagging Pacific bluefin tuna in Japanese waters have generated data that can help refine management strategies and support population recovery, as well as work with our colleagues in academic institutions in the US and Mexico. We're advancing our understanding of the range, the preferred habitat, and the population status of white sharks. So decades of data from electronic tagging, fin identification, and other techniques are helping us better assess threats and conservation strategies in an ocean changing as a result of climate change. And as an aquarium, we acknowledge our responsibility in contributing to environmental impacts. We have set institutional goals with a vision of a greener future, and they are to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. We're reducing our net greenhouse gas emissions arising from our business operations to as close to zero as possible. And we contribute to this with a range of energy efficient measures, the use of renewable energy, carbon credits to offset any remaining emissions, and a goal to every year get as close to zero as possible. We also aspire to operate as a net zero waste organization by 2025. So becoming a net zero waste organization means that we're focusing on making the best purchasing choices within our business and supply chain, which is from extraction to production to consumption and disposal of those materials. Constantly evaluating our material choices and our focus on diverting as much waste as possible from landfill. And lastly, bringing it back, we're ensuring that seafood and produce for human and animal consumption is coming from environmentally sustainable sources, and we hope to fully achieve this by 2025. Sustainable sourcing means buying environmentally responsible seafood as well as land-grown produce, ensuring it's caught or grown locally with minimal environmental impact and socially responsible to serve in our restaurants and to our animals in our living collections. So that's an overview of what our conservation priorities are. I see that there's a question about seaweed production. We don't produce seaweed in-house, but we do have ratings on seaweed, knowing that sea vegetables are very popular. So if you were to look at the ratings of seaweed on seafoodwatch.org, you will see those rated there. And we also work out in the bay to harvest seaweed when it comes to feeding our animals in our collection, but we don't specifically do any seaweed production, although that would be fantastic considering kelp forests are great at sequestering carbon. So I love your thinking there. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you all, I'm just going to move over to a different screen, is let you know where you can find more information if you wanted to engage with the Monterey Bay Aquarium, outside of the walls of our organization. On our website, montereybayaquarium.org, if you go to Act for the Ocean, you can see all of this information here and learn a little bit more about our programs, what we're doing, what the problems are, and how you can take action. And I want to encourage everybody to sign up for our Ocean Action e-news. This is a newsletter that is focused primarily on our conservation goals and what's the latest and greatest. And it comes out every quarter. So you're more than welcome to sign up and get another good e-news in your inbox, where you can find out a little bit more about things that are happening on the ocean conservation side, research side, and tips for living an ocean-friendly life. Tips curated by yours truly. And that is what I was hoping to share with you all today. If you have any specific questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Claudia. We did have a question. Well, there's another question that I know I had is there's some studies recently about the importance of eelgrass. And I just wondered if you could explain that a little bit. I know it's not something that the aquarium produces, you got enough to do, but just, if you had any insight in terms of what is eelgrass and how that's beneficial in terms of ocean acidification.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to what was mentioned with kelps and kelp forest being an ecosystem that is very efficient at sequestering carbon. So are eelgrass communities, and eelgrass communities are actually kind of like little mini kelp forests if you think about them. If you have a keystone species, the way that kelp forests have sea otters, a lot of eelgrass communities, especially in my neck of the woods, because I'm a lot further south than you all are in Silicon Valley, but in the Elkhorn Slough National Estuarine Research Reserve, there we go. We have some eelgrass communities there, and we've found that the eelgrass is very successful at serving in a similar role as kelp does in the Monterey Bay by creating this very biodiverse community with lots of great ecosystem benefits because there are otters found in that ecosystem. When otters are not as present, then you have things like sea hares, which are also found in that ecosystem and can serve a similar type of role as a keystone predator in ensuring that the eelgrass community isn't being decimated by other invertebrates. So eelgrass communities, mangrove communities, kelp forests, those are all really essential ocean ecosystems that sequester carbon way more efficiently than terrestrial habitats. So if there's any advice I can give is to continue to support policies that protect ocean coastlines.
We had a question about the sustainable energy mix of Monterey Bay. And I know you get involved a bit in operations as well. So you seem well poised for this. And so I guess it was basically sustainable energy that Monterey Bay Aquarium uses and there was also a secondary question about research in wave energy.
Okay. I'll go ahead and answer the first one. So our energy mix comes from Central Coast Community Energy, which is a community choice aggregator. And we purchase all renewable energy from them. It is all 100% solar and all 100% wind. And what we were able to do is, as one of their first big clients, ask for that particular type of energy mix and make it available for other industry leaders in our community. So that's very important. That was very important for us to be able to have a choice in the mix of energy that we purchased from, and that it was all renewable energy and it did not involve any large hydro because of the environmental impacts that it has on some fish population. But that is the power and that is the mix that we use for all of our operations at the aquarium. We do have one building that does have photovoltaic. So we are generating some renewable energy on site in our Bechtel Center for Ocean Education and Leadership. That's one of our newest buildings. And other than that, we just continue to use a lot of energy efficient measures to ensure that we're minimizing our consumption as much as possible. As you can imagine, there's a lot of energy that's required to keep our animals in the utmost care that they need to survive and to be ambassadors to their species. So we're able to make a lot of those better green business practices by working with our local CCA as well as with, just other improvements that we can do, retrofits and whatnot. And then in terms of wave energy, that's not really something that we've really explored as an option, but our ocean policy team is always looking for the most impactful research that can be made available to ensure that any decisions that we're making or any policies that we're supporting have minimal environmental impact. So that's why we're taking a close look at offshore wind at this moment. But at least on our side of the coast, we haven't really heard a lot about wave generated energy, but who knows what will happen in the future.
I'll clamp onto that with a plug for the Exploratorium in San Francisco. They actually use the cold waters of the bay to generate heating and cooling, to do heat exchange. And it's a great system. I think it was a Point Energy, I think, was the innovator on that. And that's a fascinating thing. Just even basically arbitraging the differences in terms of the ambient temperature and the temperature of the water in the bay. And so that's not quite wave energy, but it's using using the waters of the bay for certainly a beneficial energy use.
Yes, very cool. We do something very similar where we take when aquarium is full of guests. We would capture, it's a heat exchange capture where we would capture the body heat of the guests and use that amount of heat to warm up some of the waters in our exhibits that are full of tropical species, like in our splash zone exhibit. So yeah, there's really no such thing as waste at the aquarium.
Yeah, no, heat's a great thing to move around, for sure. We did have some questions about, these are, well, I guess a number of kind of food questions. And, but anyway, if you had thoughts, there's obviously a lot of plant-based kind of protein things going on. And if you had any thoughts about plant-based protein, that was more fish flavored or textured.
Yeah, I mean, here's the really cool thing is I think a lot of these questions, and I'm not saying that the folks asking these questions are coming from this angle, but there have been a lot of questions that have come up about seafood and plant-based seafood as a result of the documentary Seaspiracy. And something to note is that Seafood Watch has never said eat seafood because it's healthy for you. It's more of the stance that people are probably going to eat seafood, and the best thing to do is make the most sustainable choice. And if that includes not eating seafood, that's cool. Personally, I am plant-based. I don't eat seafood. And I think that cell-based meats and proteins are fantastic. I enjoy them, and I follow other organizations like the Good Food Institute to see what they're doing and how they're creating kind of open source access to cell-based proteins so that any company can kind of catalog those types of genes, basically, so that they can create a new market for cell-based meats. But yeah, I think cell-based proteins are incredibly fantastic, and depends on what your why you want to promote them or support them. And if it's for ethical reasons, for environmental reasons, just eating a little bit lighter on the planet. And, sometimes you can make something that tastes just like seafood by adding seaweed, because it has that nice salty umami flavor. So lots of really great options for folks who are food curious out there.
And well, so you're mentioning actually cell-based proteins, which is kind of the next generation beyond plant-based. Just wanted to clarify. I mean, I guess at one point there were the the turkey burgers and kind of actually the bean burgers and different, which were well, I guess they're kind of plant-based, but then obviously the Impossible and Beyond and all the other things are plant-based. But yeah, there is a lot of work going on in terms of cell-based, which I guess is something to look forward to. One other question we had was that I know in San Francisco Bay that a lot of the sustainable fishing people point to how great sardines are as a local source, especially in San Francisco, actually in San Francisco Bay. I just wondered if you had any thoughts about, just even the local fisheries, fish-based protein.
Yeah, absolutely. Local is always great. If you have, especially in San Francisco, an opportunity to purchase directly from a fishmonger, from your fisher community, that is fantastic. A lot of the seafood that we purchase in the grocery store, as local as you hope it might be, actually gets exported and it gets frozen, and then it comes back to your local supermarket. So that's not very sustainable when you think of the emissions factor. So if you can cut out that entire process, then that's fantastic. Supporting your local community fishery, your LCF, or supporting your local fish market is absolutely something that I recommend for folks who are seafood lovers. And if you're not sure about what the status or the rating of the seafood that is being sold locally to you is, you can check seafoodwatch.org. We have our recommendations listed there. It's a very easy website to find information on. It's still a little clunky, but if you know the species that you want to get information about and where they are coming from in terms of location in the ocean, you can get a lot of really good information there.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear, well, for one thing, there's working harbors. Half Moon Bay is a working harbor, and there are, I know we get to frequent a kind of permanent farmers market that always has great selection of, fish from Half Moon Bay. We did feature in a bit of a plug for our sustainable life part of our website, is our program part, which is ssvlife.org, if you're keeping score at home. That we did a feature on Fishmonger Don. Obviously, the Seaspiracy video, it's on Netflix, is pretty darn scary. But there are a lot of pretty good stories in at least in the Bay Area, amid all the scary stuff. And we're looking to, kind of feature that as well. The other thing out of Redwood City Harbor, there's well, it was a happy occurrence where there was a fire at Pier 39 and basically a working trawler, a sustainable trawler that worked with EDF, Environmental Defense Fund, on the way they don't drag the ocean floor. They have other ways to kind of do it at different lines. And Pioneer Seafood, it actually sells, they have a food truck, and they also sell off their boat on weekends. And that's in Redwood City Harbor as well. So that's a very direct kind of thing as well. And they have I think they have a Facebook presence mostly, where they can tell you what they're fishing for and what they are coming back with.
That's great. Yeah, I think
there are definitely sources out there. You mentioned LCF.
Yeah, your local community supported fishery. So it's similar to a CSA, community supported agriculture. Maybe I meant CFF. Community supported fishery. Yeah, sorry.
Well, there's a different, it's an acronym, but it is the same kind of situation.
It is, yeah. And you can find a lot of information there. Even if you were to check localharvest.org, I believe, that's where you can find anywhere in the US where your local farmers market is. And a lot of times you can also find whether your local farmers market has a fishmonger or if local seafood is being sold at that farmers market. But you can also check your community supported fisheries. Just Google that. I can't remember what the exact website is.
We'll find that acronym.
But lots of really great opportunities for you to connect with folks who are of the industry, are trying to sell from, dock to the consumer. And that's probably one of the most sustainable things that you all can do if you are a seafood lover. You could also choose to eat sea vegetables, seaweeds are great, or choose bivalves, clams, mussels. Those are fantastic as well. But yeah, lots of options for folks who love to eat seafood, and also options for folks who just like that flavor, but maybe aren't super fans of seafood, seaweed, sea vegetables. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's admittedly I got a seafood it's kind of a kelp product. It's actually from Maine, and I've been having it in rotation, with kimchi of all things. But it's a seaweed product, and I have to say also I've been experimenting with nori rolls, just with everyday things, like cheese. It's just a great wrapper. And, so there've been more availability of I guess, plant-based food from the sea, if not fish. But anyway, Claudia, thanks for agreeing to come on our show and talk about fish and plastic and oceans and all this stuff. We certainly, I think all of us want to get, haven't been to Monterey Bay Aquarium in quite a while. There's some pent up demand to visiting, and hopefully that'll play out over the next few months as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, all of you. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I dropped the link to
Oh, I
your
saw that.
local
Yeah.
community supported fisheries. It's called localcatch.org. That's where anywhere in the US you can find your local local fishmonger and where to purchase from if you want your money to go back into your community and into a sustainable business, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, whether it's fish or cheese, I just like mongers in general. And it's great stuff. Thanks again, Claudia.